everybody, today on BleepinJeep, I bought a truck and turned it into a crawler hauler for under $5 grand. So this is what I picked up. A 1999 Ford F350 with a 6-speed manual. It's a dually and it has a 9-foot flatbed. Would you look at that? Somebody's like me and they like to paint on here so they don't forget what they need. So I picked this thing up on an internet auction and I paid $3,200 for it. But of course they never tell you that you have the little secret hidden costs. So I actually paid $3,500 for it. But my thought is I'm not going to be able to find a 7.3 Power Stroke with it has 240,000 miles for $3,500, especially with new tires, dually, flatbed, everything else. My goal with this build is to get rid of hauling a trailer. I have my Power Wagon, which is a gasser, and when I haul that trailer, my fuel economy goes. Also, some things with the trailers, you end up having to buy more trailer tires. You got to buy 4 or 5 trailer tires. You have to buy another set of plates. You have another thing you got to haul, another brakes you got to put on, another something you have to maintain. Where if I have this and I have a crawler hauler where I can drive my rig up on the back, now I've just deleted having to haul a trailer. And if you're in one of those states where you have to drive that speed limit because you're hauling a trailer, I'm gonna whiz right on by you. This poor thing's seen some better days. So when I brought it home, I took it for its test drive and I found that the truck runs great, starts right up, runs great, but it's definitely weak pulling hills with weight on it. So I've put a lot of these Fords together for people in the past. I don't really know a whole lot about them. I know that just like any diesel, you definitely want to make it breathe. If it can breathe, that's where it's at. So with budget conscious in mind, I went to eBay for all these parts. So this intake literally was like $40. I think I paid $200 for that turbo. Let's hope that lasts. I've never bought a turbo that cheap before. The exhaust I think was about $350, and the hoses and stuff were about $90. The fuel filters were $10, and I believe this was, I don't know, $20 or $30 also. So the one major pro of this is now I'm not having to buy trailer tires, I'm not having to buy trailer brakes, I'm not having to buy trailer tags. If I can get this to work right, this will be great. Now I have had people tell me, well, this is 2-wheel drive and your truck's 4-wheel drive. Yeah, but pulling in the snow, 4-wheel drive with a trailer is probably just as bad as a weighted dually that's 2-wheel drive. Just throwing it out there. Now if I could have found a 4-wheel drive, obviously I'd have bought it, but once again that price tag jumps up a lot. I probably have about $4,500 into it total right now before my time. If I can get this thing done and get my ramps on and not have to haul a trailer and be in at $5,000, that's the cost of a new trailer. So I feel like I'm doing pretty good at that point. This truck's so big I'm gonna have to build this thing outside. That is nasty. When's the last time that's seen a car wash? Probably never since the day it was new. Look at the side of this filter. Gross. A little bit of oil. So I have a new boost valve. This is the boost valve here. And I don't know if it's good or bad, but I have a new one. I don't know if you can see that or not, if it's picking it up, but that is dry rotted. Oh man. Definitely worth changing that out for sure.
I've done this before. So tell me, darling, once again, what you said.
So when you pull these, you got to be real careful. You just don't want to over cinch it, because all it is literally sheet metal there. But yeah, that's just paper thin, so you don't want to crimple those. They actually make sleeves for these if you need them. I still got to get the last intercooler hose off, and then we can take the exhaust out. Then we can start putting everything back together. Put in a new turbo, put in a new exhaust, and then put in the new hoses. Look at all that oily goo. Guess I better make sure I get the intercooler cleaned out along with these lines before I put my new clamps back on. That shuts and closes that turbo off. And it wasn't hooked up to this. That slides in and out and opens the back end of that turbo exhaust up. So the plus side is the underside of this truck is pretty darn rust free. I mean, there's a little bit of surface rust on the frame, but that ain't jack. So that's super rad. But I guarantee that muffler right there with 240,000 miles on it is probably some clogged up McPoo-poo. So my friend Mr. Sawzall is what I ended up using to cut everything out. But I do have one of these tools. I don't know if you guys have ever seen one of these before or not, but this is actually to push the exhaust post out of the rubber. That couldn't have been good. So here's every piece of the exhaust laid out with the new one. I will cut the cat. I looked at it, it's clean. So I'll clean it up again real quick. I'll clean the inside out real good, and then I'll cut it out and weld it into there, because those things are getting expensive. Well, I got my downpipe in here and I got my exhaust kind of lined out, but I didn't want to get any farther until I got my turbo in. Well, I went to set this turbo in and I found out the turbo I bought was for $99.50 to 2003, and in '97 they quit making the square body style Ford Power Strokes, and then in '99 they brought out this one. So this is a half-year model, and I've been making some phone calls. I've been making phone calls to a lot of my big Ford Superduty friends, and this is a half-year model. The pedestal's different, the spider is different, a lot of these parts are different, and if I were to run this 99.5 turbo, my problem then is that I would have to change my up pipe, which I definitely don't want to do, and I'd have to change my pedestal, and I'd have to change my spider, and I'd even have to change one of the exhaust manifolds, I guess. So with that being said, here's what we're going to do. So this is my new turbo, and this is the original turbo. You can immediately see that the snail shell here is much larger than the 99. The 99.5, it went to a bigger snail shell. It also went to a bigger intake here for the intercooler, and that is the problem I'm running into, along with it sitting higher on the pedestal where it connects to the exhaust. Now looking at it, physically looking at it, these two the exhaust side of this turbo is exactly the same. It doesn't look like anything has changed. So I'm gonna try, since everything's new in here and everything here is the same size, so what I'm gonna try to do is take the snail shell off, and I'll have to swap the wastegates out because they're, like I said, they're different lengths. But can I put this snail shell on here and then still have a brand new turbo but be able to connect to all my original parts? I don't know. We're gonna find out though. Alright, so I got the snail shells off of the compressors, the compressor side of the turbo. So far it looks like everything's the same. The wheel size is the same. There's a little bit of play in here, but not too bad. The plates are in the same spot. Now if you see this, this is because when they build a turbo they balance it, so this mark is in line with this mark. You can see a little green mark there on the fin, and that's how they balanced it. So if I go to take that off, I need to interchange this mark onto this piece so that it stays balanced, and then I also need to mark this piece with the turbo itself so that when I take this off it's straight where it needs to be to fit when I swap them over. So I just threaded the old turbo off. You can definitely see some wear there from where it was wore out. Now I can take these 4 bolts out. I've honestly never done this before, so I'm taking it apart and learning as we go. In case anyone's never seen the inside of a turbo, here's what it looks like. So the oil comes up. I gotta make sure I don't hurt that O-ring, but I did go ahead and mark where the oil comes in, right down here where my pinky is. Comes in, feeds up through these ports inside here, and then works down and keeps all those bearings lubricated. Okay, so there's the old one. There's the new housing. I swapped out the old housing on the compressor side, got everything lined up here, and we are good to go. Let's hope. I did go ahead and put blue Loctite on this bolt and then the 4 bolts that hold the compressor housing on. I guess we'll find out how that works. So what I ended up doing is having to take the guts out of this turbo that's new and take it apart so that I could change out the compressor snail shell with the older turbo so that I could put that on there with all the new turbo guts. Now the only problem I ran into was the exhaust back pressure valve that, if you remember, wasn't even hooked up, and its rod is much longer. So what I'm doing is just removing it, looking into it. It looks like that most people delete that anyway, and probably because it fails. And when I tried to find that part for this thing, I couldn't even find it for the early 99. I could only find it for the 99.5 to 03. Not saying it's not out there, I'm just saying I couldn't find it. So it was just easier for me to remove it because we're doing this on a budget. So some of the things like this turbo, I'm gonna blame Ford engineers for making a vehicle, change a vehicle's total dynamic out in a half-year model. Not to make a, they didn't make a 98, then they made an early 99 and then changed stuff out 99.5. But in that same breath, if I'd have went to Ford for my hoses with the early 99, they'd have given me the right hoses. The problem is you can see all these hoses are the same size. This is the hose that comes off that Spider intake, and you can see it's a very weird custom size. Now when I looked at ordering them, these are kind of really pricey actually. And so what I did is I cleaned them up, and what I've done in the past to check hoses, especially when they're like this, is I can just stick my hand on it and make a suction. And if I can put on something flat and I can make that suction, and make that suction, you can see that it was working good. So that means it doesn't have holes in it or anything like that with pressure. So I'm going to go ahead and reuse these because we are definitely on a budget. The downside to working outside is I kind of ran out of daylight. I got most of the stuff buttoned up. I got a few more things to do, but we'll kick back on it first thing in the morning. So here's another downside of buying cheap. Right here on this intake piece, I was getting ready to put it on, and I stuck my finger in here, and where they'd welded these two pieces together is actually, there's a bunch of metal slag and stuff. So I had to sit here with a Zoomy and clean it up because I don't want to suck that right down my turbo. Crazy. All right guys, I got it all together. New day. Let me show you a few things I had to change though. So first things first, out of all 6 of the hoses I bought, the only 2 that I could use that were new is that one and that one. This eBay intake, I actually had to cut this tube down, and I had to modify pieces to actually get this part to stay where it's supposed to. So it took a lot of work on top of cleaning all this out just to get this together. I had to modify my lines a little bit for the boost valve. It actually started up and ran good. So now I can clean up my mess out here. I got to finish up tightening up the exhaust, and then we can start on this bed, which includes cutting all this stuff off. Goodbye.
And it's so much easier letting go when you know that you got nothing to fear. Because you're safely standing.
We got some metal, we got some new taillights, and got some Harbor Freight clevises so that I can weld those D-rings on there to strap down the Samurai. Alright, so I got my channel that's going to be my base for the bottom. I got a few marks on it where I'm going to weld my 3-foot extensions and a couple other pieces, and then I'll cut it out for the taillights, and we'll start burning all the stuff together. So I drove the Samurai up here and got some marks. The rear, I'm gonna do my clevises right here, and that way I can just use an axle strap and strap it towards the front of the truck. The front, I'm gonna do one clevis right in the very center. In case I ever break down, I can winch myself up and pull myself in, or if I gotta use a come along or whatever. The front, I'm gonna do a tire strap. So I have it marked here where I'm gonna have my tire, and then the tire sits up right against this. And I only bought 5 clevises, but I do keep a bunch of old U-bolts, and people always ask me why I keep them. Well, this is why. Right here, now I can just weld that in, and saving money, that cost me nothing. That was old U-bolts. So that's what I'm gonna use for the front. So let's burn them in. I got some gussets in up here. I got everything painted, got my taillights wired. I used some old wire loom that I had, so that side's a little bigger and dark, and this side's smaller and red, but we're on a budget, right? Went ahead and added a couple gussets, not only just there, but here, up here is an extra support, and another gusset here, because this side I want to leave open. There's really nothing to attach to this. This is just angle iron, so it's not really that strong. And the back of that Samurai literally only weighs about 700 pounds, I think. Everything's aluminum. I have aluminum brakes, or aluminum brake brackets, aluminum steering, aluminum wheels. I even have aluminum hubs on there, so it's pretty lightweight. One thing we're gonna do, budget, once again being on a budget, if you guys have never seen these are air shocks. Not normally made for F350s, but these are about 80 bucks as opposed to the $400 or so for airbags. We're gonna try these first as opposed to the airbags. When I put the weight of the Samurai on here, it got just to the top of the overload spring. They're actually made for a heavy half F250 style truck, but they still measure out the same length as an F350. The only thing I got left to wire in is right here, and this wire is just for the license plate bracket where I'll mount the license plate right there. I welded in my clevises. Is this how you guys lift a dually? I got 2 on each side. I don't know. Money. Look at how long those get. Booyah. 32 inches, man. That's factory. That's crazy long. So one of the problems I came across with is that the shock for the F150, F250 has a sleeve on it, and this is actually a shank. So it's a 5/8 shank. So I'm just going to try to drill that thick sleeve out and see if I can drill it out to 5/8. If I can't, hopefully it'll spin that sleeve out and I can pop it out and then and then I can just slide it on here without having to put a sleeve in there at all. So the FedEx guy that loves me and hates me just showed up with my Max straps. I didn't want to be cheap when it came to putting my vehicle on there, so I did splurge on these, but actually you'd be surprised if you get on the internet what you can buy these for. Well, unfortunately what I thought would happen is exactly what did happen. I got about 1/3 of the way through the sleeve. The sleeve got so hot that it actually melted the rubber and then slid out of the rubber. So fortunately for me, I was able to pop that out. And I do keep a whole pile of old sleeves and rubber stuff and everything from different shocks. If I ever install a lift kit, it usually comes with multiple different kinds of shock tabs and mounts and everything else. So I always keep all the pieces. So if you've never done air shocks, it's super easy to install. Once you put the air shock on, this is the part that threads onto the air shock. You have these little O-rings. They're just standard rubber O-rings. You slide it on there. You put your connecting piece on, which is the T, so this will go in between the shocks. Shove the O-ring all the way in. Shove the O-ring all the way in just like that, and then you thread it on. One of the things I like to do with the valve core, though, is I'll go ahead and pull it out and put a little bit of tire fix-a-flat in there, like slime or something else, and then put it back on. And what that's going to do is just push that little bit of fiberglass in here, and that way if you have any air leaks, any weeps, it'll fill those spots, and then you don't have to worry about it. That's a trick my dad showed me years ago. And so if you have any air shocks or you have air bags even, and you have it where they're losing air pressure, take that valve core out and treat it just like a tire and put a little bit of that fiberglass fix-a-flat. Not a lot, just a little bit. Where'd you get that finger strength, Colt? Got it. All right, moment of truth. Time to take it out and see if it'll handle a long distance trip. I'll see you guys next time. If you like this video, check these ones out.